Oops. There we go. So as long as we can see ourselves in there, I think we're good.
Okay. Do we look at that or we look at each other?
Oh, at me.
Okay.
Me. Yeah, we'll just have the conversation. I will start with that question for the camera.
Okay.
What do you think happens after this life? So this is Patrick. I'm Jeff. And yeah.
Jeff, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Sounds like it's something you enjoy talking about.
Happy to talk about it.
Not everyone is.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I pray that everybody, believes, and I think after death, I believe if you believe that Jesus is the Son of God, which I do very much so, I believe that we ascend to heaven, and I believe that we are going to be there in spirit with our loved ones and with our Father God, and I believe that He has, built a space for all of us to live in. I hope and pray that we get to join in with our loved ones that we lost here on earth. And it's, I recently lost my 48-year-old brother just 5 weeks ago. And his faith was very, very strong. And,
that's good.
I got to spend 9 months with him as he battled cancer. And we prayed often, and we talked about heaven and what heaven's going to be like. And, he reassured me that his faith was strong even through his struggles, and knows that, God had a plan for him, and it's not for us to question, and we just got to stay the course.
What a blessing to have that reassurance, right?
Yeah.
When someone that you love passes, that you'll see them again. And
absolutely. I mean, I think during that time, me being 46 and my brother being 48, if my faith wasn't strong, I don't know how I would have gotten through it. I don't know how
I think he probably would have tried to help you with your faith.
Yeah.
From the sound of it.
Yes. Yeah. So during that time, I leaned very hard into my faith, and I was very blessed. I could have got a different phone call that maybe my brother had died in a car accident. I didn't get to, say goodbye to him or what have you. And for me, I feel like God gave me time with him, and he's got other plans, and it's not for me to question or to ask. I know my brother's up there, and he's in a better place, like we all say and believe, right?
So did you grow up with a church-going family, or
no? Matter of fact, that saying, I found God, and well, no, you didn't find God. God draws all men to him, right? And I've recently I found faith probably about 3 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my son goes to a local Christian school here. We put him in when he was a freshman, and I always believed in God, of course, and I always believed that Jesus was the Son of God. But I wouldn't say that I was a strong follower, and you get caught up in life living for earthly desires and things, and and you come to a point in your life where you realize that these fleshly desires, the cars, the houses, the working more hours, that's not what life's about.
No.
Life's about serving God, loving your family. And it took me a while to realize what the most important thing in life was, but I certainly have found that and know
so putting your son in the Christian school, sounds like that was a big part of it, or a result of it.
I think putting him in this school, and he became one of the Christian rock band members. And, and we would go we'd watch him Saturday night service, Sunday service. I became very, very close with Pastor Joe, and I feel like he helped me along the way as well, and being there in this family atmosphere with complete strangers.
Is that Families of Faith Church?
Mm-hmm, okay. It is. Feeling, we would go on Saturday night service because my son would play in the Saturday night service, and then we'd go Sunday morning, and then Sunday afternoon.
Oh, wow.
And, it's the greatest gift that I've been given is my faith, and there was so many questions I had in life that I think being part of the church, being a believer, having faith, have answered so many questions for me in life. And again, I can go back to the loss of my brother. I don't think, as I stand here today, Patrick 5 or 10 years ago could not understand and could not have gotten through. At least I don't believe I would have gotten through.
Was he Oh, you're Patrick. Your brother was he a longtime Christian? Or?
No. Nope.
Okay.
1 year before me.
Oh, okay.
A couple years before me. We both believed.
Did you? Would you say you both independently came to faith?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He lived in Michigan.
Wow.
We're 3 hours apart.
What a blessing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And when he got diagnosed on day one, he was in the hospital, and it's the first thing him and I talked about. We were alone, and he assured me that his faith was still very, very strong, and I didn't need the assurance, but we just started talking about it, and he told me that that he believes the only way into heaven is through believing that Jesus is the Son of God, and he believes that Jesus is the Son of God. And
so you said that you didn't really have a church background, but you did always, or much of your life, believe that Jesus,
when we were kids, there was a small Baptist church a couple towns over in Michigan where we grew up, and on Sundays the bus would pick us up, and my mom and dad would give each of us boys a quarter for the offering, and they'd send us on our way, and my parents didn't go with us.
I see.
And looking
it was like
back,
a babysitting
looking
service
back,
for them.
as I aged, I started to think, well, yeah, mom and dad were just probably wanted a little alone time away from us kids. And then as we got older and you get into sports and you've got all these different activities, I believe my parents are believers, but I think you get caught up in life. And, and it's very...
and if it's not problems of life, it's entertainment.
Yeah.
So the good and the bad of life can distract us from what's really important.
All desires in life aren't necessarily bad, right? I mean, there's the earthly, fleshly desires, maybe Sunday, instead of going to church, you're going to watch a football game. Or you're going to a game. And,
there's something called opportunity cost. Mm-hmm. Do you know what that means? Like in economics, it's like if you put your money in here, what are the opportunities you're missing because you could be using your money somewhere else, right?
Sure.
And the same thing happens with our time. Yeah. So even the negative thing or the neutral things of our life that are not good or bad, but what are we missing out on by doing those? Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Absolutely.
So it's like, what opportunities are we missing out on?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I feel like God doesn't want us to just do whatever is good. He wants us to do whatever is best,
Yes.
and which is in line with His will, and sometimes that might mean going on a vacation. Sure. Or other times, like really diligently serving our church or whatever.
My pastor had reminded me, it's like, I think you can get caught up in like, you can't miss a Sunday service. You can't miss a Saturday night service.
Yeah, it's easy.
And, but then you could miss out on things that God probably would not want you to miss out on. Maybe a kid's event or what have you. And it's nice for me because I feel like my faith's so strong. I feel like Jesus is with me every day, all day long. I listen to podcasts, and 5 years ago I was listening to sports podcasts.
Right.
Today I'm listening to Christian radio and Christian talk. And
cool.
My wife and I just talked about that the other day. I just bought a new vehicle, and the station that was in there was a country music station. I used to listen to that's all I used to listen to was country music or sports radio. Yeah. And it was already pre-programmed. I didn't know how to change it. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to it, listening to some of the words of it, and I'm like, this isn't what I want to listen to.
No, right.
And I quickly find my Christian station and on Sirius XM, and the music is soothing. The message is usually very, very soothing. And I just looked at my wife and I said, geez, I used to just love country music, and now a lot of it sounds like filth to me, you know? So it's...
Some of it's very good, some of it's not.
Yeah, some of it's good, some of it's not.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Do you and would you say your wife is growing in her faith too?
Absolutely.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I actually I had a neighbor lady who I guess I would say almost she's like the opposite of your parents. She was so involved in church that her kids were neglected. Like she was there probably 5 times a week. Yeah. And her kids, I lived in Chicago on the south side at the time, and her kids were just running the street, and so, when you were talking about God maybe God doesn't want us in church all the time, because what are we neglecting? You know.
Well, and I think plenty of people, you know, there was a point in time, myself included, would think, okay, if you go to church on Sunday, that's, I mean, you're doing your good deed. That's going to get you into heaven. And that's just not, it's not true. I mean, it's how you live your life and the decisions you make. And, you know, I for one, let God guide me through life and make the right decisions. And I probably fail every day. And, you know, sometimes I realize it and sometimes we don't, you know, and, but I believe it's more about it's not being at church every single Sunday.
Right.
Like, for example, today, full transparency, I missed church today. My son got up and he went to church. I took care of a couple things in the house, but I'll watch the service. That's the beauty also of technology. And, you know, I think God brought to that technology. And now, you know, I can watch the Sunday service tonight. And if I miss it and I didn't watch it tonight, I listened to it in the car on my way to work. And, you know, I don't know. Life is good. God is good.
I actually have just discussed. So I go to Mission Bible Church, and used to go to a small church in Chicago, which never really grew. It was a very good church, but a lot of transients as far as like people coming and going. In that part of town. So I don't think there was anything we were doing wrong, but the church never really grew over 100, 120 people. And so when you're part of like leadership in a small church like that, you're pretty much wearing a lot of different hats, you know? And absolutely, you get this feeling like church can't exist. Not that it couldn't exist without me, but you really feel a sense of guilt if you don't go. And now we're going to a much bigger church, and they could do fine without me. They were doing fine before I got there.
I still do. I will say, I know it's not right. I do, like, I still have this sense of guilt if I don't go. But then I remind myself, like, well, how are you living life? What are your beliefs? And, you know, we get to church three times a month, probably. You know,
one thing I think about is it's not just what do we get out of church, but like maybe there's people at church that would benefit from us being there, and and maybe we need to like make sure that it's almost like a ministry, going to church and just being physically present, being an encouragement. Are you involved in a small group or anything like that?
No, I'm not.
In a large church like that, I'd really recommend it. You know, just because that's what my wife and I do. We actually go on Saturday nights to church. But a lot of
does Mission have Saturday night service? Okay.
But a lot of the people from our small group go on Saturday nights, and so we kind of like see them there. And
what time's the service on Saturday nights?
5.
Okay. Because Fafka no longer has Saturday night service, because Pastor Joe, he moved and he ran the Saturday night service. I missed Saturday night service, actually.
When I grew up, only the Catholics did, had it, but I didn't. I really liked it. Saturday night service. I don't know, maybe it's my age or something. But
I don't know. I like it too. So
So how do you, Patrick? How do you like share your faith? Like, how is church helping you to share the good news with others?
Well, I mean, I think full transparency, I don't walk up to a stranger, you know, but I see opportunity everywhere, and you know, there could be 3-4 days in a row that I meet somebody that I feel like I can share my faith and my beliefs and talk to them about theirs. You know, oftentimes it's, you know, it can be when somebody has good news, you know, it's nice to say, well, you know, God is good, you know, and sit and talk about that, and, you know, some of the blessings that we have in life. And then there's times where, you know, being around somebody that maybe recently lost a loved one and being able to help talk them through that, especially somebody that maybe doesn't have strong faith. And, you know, it's faith's important. And, you know, people want to know what happened to their loved ones, and they're mourning their loss, and they don't understand, and they've got so many questions. And sometimes if they were teetering on their belief, that's a time where, you know, I believe the devil's working against us every single day, and I think that's an opportunity in some cases. If that person that's not understanding why they lost their mom or why they lost their brother or why they didn't get to say goodbye or why a failed relationship. It's an opportunity to blame God for some people. And coming across somebody that's faith is strong, I think that that's a good opportunity to sit. And when they see other believers and they see that, like, I can sit and say, talk about my own situations in life and my own beliefs and what's happened to my brother, and they can still see that I can smile. Listen, I cry every day since I lost my brother. I really do. I'm not crying because I don't believe that he's in heaven. I know where he's at.
Right. You miss him.
I miss him.
Yeah.
I miss him. I miss picking up the phone and being able to call him and talk about the Chicago Bears or tell him about what his nephew just did or talk about the holidays coming up or, we were sport fans and we like boxing. And last night was tough because there was a, heavyweight boxing match and I wanted to call my brother. But my faith is strong. I know where he's at.
It's just those memories just hit us unexpectedly.
I got to hold him in my arms in his final breath. And, I look at that as a blessing.
That's great.
I truly do.
Well, so when I do these conversations, and that's kind of why I have my channel, is to show people of many different backgrounds. So I've oftentimes, maybe not often, many times I've met people who are actually like dying of a terminal disease, which is hard. And so my conversation is very different than it is with, like a hardened atheist or a fellow believer, and so my goals change. So I try to listen for a little while and figure out, well, what can I contribute to this person's faith development, and kind of go from there. So I at times I feel like I'm like John the Baptist, like preparing people for Jesus. Other times I feel like I'm more of an evangelist. Other times more of like a pastor, trying to minister to them.
I would try it, when I run across that, and probably not as often as you do because you're doing this YouTube channel, I just try and, remind people to keep their faith strong in moments of weakness and sickness, and remind them that, God is the great physician, and all things are possible through him. And what his plan will be, I don't know, but I had faith all along that my brother was going to be cured, and God had other plans. And I still think he's the great physician, and it doesn't change my belief on that. God had other plans for my brother.
One thing I want to leave you with is just a practical how-to on how, like you said, you don't just walk up to anyone and start sharing your faith or whatever, start a conversation. So I do, because I'm used to it and I've practiced and I've kind of know what to say and what not to say. But one situation that I find super easy is I sell a lot of things on Facebook Marketplace, or I buy a lot of things. And so I'm meeting people that I've never met before, And so let's say someone comes to my house and we're kind of wrangling about the deal, and then we figure out the price, and then we, I load it onto their car, and then right before they leave, instead of so a lot of Christians want to say, they kind of want to do like a bait and switch. They want to kind of test the waters and say, what a blessed day we're having, and see if they respond to that word blessed, or whatever. I don't know what
I know what you mean.
So I've learned that the only way that I can have a conversation that is totally devoted to that subject is to actually ask, to say, you know what, I have a question that's totally unrelated to all this, crazy question, and they're like, what do you think happens after this life? And now we're talking, I've asked for permission, I've started the conversation. I feel free to kind of go off on tangents, because I can always say, well, let's get back to that original question. What, and so it's like a dedicated conversation that, I'm not constantly trying like manipulative ways to get it back on the topic, because we agreed to talk about that from the beginning, and that really, to me, I've already established a little rapport through the just dealing with the sale and stuff like that. So it's not completely a cold call, cold, walk up to a stranger kind of thing. But
I'm curious, how do you respond when to a non-believer or somebody that maybe just says, "Oh, I just think we die and are."
Well, I like to. I guess I think of it as like I approached you as like I want to find if they have doubts or if they have beliefs, I want to find out, well, how did you get there?
Yeah.
How did you get to your doubts?
Yeah.
And they'll usually, if they have doubts or they're skeptics or atheists, so were you always an atheist? Did you have a church background? What's your understanding of Christianity?
Sure.
Because you can't really honestly reject a faith that you have no idea what it teaches.
Sure.
So I'll explain that to them, and they'll say, "Do you want to know what it teaches?" Well, sure.
Yeah.
And then I share the gospel.
Yeah. You know, I love it.
So I mean, I've learned a lot over the years of doing this, and when I do meet other believers, I do want to I feel like the best place to encourage another believer to share their faith is when I'm actually doing it myself. So I walked up to you, and so now I kind of have the right to say, this is something you could be doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'll share this with you.
Sure.
This is the truth. I come in here almost every single day to get a coffee.
Okay.
Sometimes it's at 6 a.m. Sometimes it's at 9. Sometimes it's at 11. Whatever.
Yeah.
And when I came in here, and I come in, I get the same thing every day. I get a breakfast sandwich.
Do they know what you're going to order?
Yeah, they know what I'm going to order.
That's cool.
I come in, I grab it, and I walk out that door, and I get in my truck. I leave my truck running because I'm usually in here for 1 minute, get my stuff, and I run right out. For some reason today, I felt compelled to sit down. I haven't sat down here. The only time I've ever sat in here is when my wife and I will come in. Sometimes we'll sit and just talk, but most of the time we're on the run. And my truck's still running. I came in, and for some reason, and it's okay. But I felt compelled to sit down, and I'd been here 5 minutes before you walked in.
Yeah.
And I actually, when I sat down, I said, "Why am I sitting down?"
That's funny.
Yeah, and I didn't. Maybe God brought us together here today to have this conversation.
Yeah.
So I think it's wonderful. I'm glad you approached me.
I'm glad I did too.
Yeah, I'm
going to turn this off and see how I can pray for you. Okay.
I appreciate that.
All right.